attempt, whatever, to get a second part of this Electrohome chassis update, repair, modification, whatever, going. And courtesy of Microsoft, you know that Microsoft is a four-letter word. Windows is definitely a four-letter word. At any rate, I've been attempting to use Camera, which is Windows built-in video recording. And it's so horrifically wrong, whereas I make a recording, everything's fine, says it's saved, I go looking for it, it's there, it's not anywhere. So I tried again and specifically set up the directory that I wanted to go to, and it wasn't there. So at any rate, here I am. I've dispensed with Microsoft as much as possible. I really need to learn some Linux and get rid of Windows altogether. It's the biggest irritant in my life at the moment. At any rate, enough of that ranting. This is the part 2 of this Electrohome, about 1962 tube stereo system. Okay, everything's been done. In my attempt to video before, I showed some very interesting things, at least I thought. And one of the things I did was restuff this main electrolytic capacitor, filter capacitor, which was quite interesting to do. It's a messy effort to do it. And actually this can, this aluminum can, is not the one I took out. I'm busy searching the bench to see, oh, there it is there. Okay, see if I can get this in the shot. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay, this is actually the can that I took out of this. All right. Can you see inside there? Quite messy. At any rate, I got the innards out, and as you can see, the edge is quite messy. Most capacitors have a flange. I'm trying to see if I can find one. Here's a small one. They pretty well all have this kind of a flange on them, right? Now, I don't have the tools, the 3D printers, the lathes that others might have in order to do this properly. So I do it the way that I can, and this is to take my Dremel and cut this flange right off, and then I can pull things like this out and get my needle nose pliers in and twist and yank out. Now with this one, where are we? Let's zoom back out. With this can, this came from some other radio, stereo, whatever, I can't remember which one. At any rate, it had tar all in the bottom, and I had to use a chemical to try and dissolve that, and quite a few shop towels all wrapped up and shoved down inside to clean it out. I got most of it out and it was fine. Now, if you look at this, let's get it up in shot. This is the capacitor that actually came out of this stereo, and it is a 40-80-40 at 350. Okay, so what I have, in fact, put in is what I had in stock. There are no more, as far as I'm aware of, 40 microfarad capacitors. It's 47. So I have 247 at 450 volts, and instead of the 80, I put in a 120. And unfortunately, I can't show very effectively how I filled it. But what I did was I brought all the wires out from the capacitors, put them inside and then started filling it up with hot melt glue. And so we had 3 wires, a red one and 2 orange ones, depicting which values were hooked up to what, and a black, which is the negative, all connected together. And they come out as wires. And then I have a mount. Let's zoom in again. There's a mount. It's a clamp and a mount. And the ones I bought were just a little bit too big, so I wound a number of turns of tape. Let's see if I can show this. Zoom out again. Okay. And clamped it in there, and it's quite secure. I made a label that shows that I have restuffed it, and it shows the color of the wires coming out and what they're hooked up to in the way of the capacitors inside. All right, now I did a boo-boo on this, which is typical of me. So in my enthusiasm to mount this, zoom out a bit again, I had to drill holes for the mounting bolts. And although I had said that I would keep the circuit breaker that is mounted in behind here, when I drilled the hole, I drilled right through the circuit breaker and destroyed it. So no circuit breaker anymore. I took it out and I put in a fuse holder, which is mounted inside. Okay, now if I can turn this over and show what I've done inside. Oh, and it's a heavy beast. A heavy beast. Oh, okay. We're roughly there. Okay. Now let's zoom in to this corner here. This new camera I have is quite handy. I've got this remote control that lets me zoom in and out and actually shift the image back and forth. So the capacitor was something I can point with. The capacitor is mounted there, and you probably can't see too well, but the entire surface there has just been filled with hot melt glue. So then I mounted a tag strip there and put the resistors that had been mounted across the original capacitor there, and then hooked up the wires and everything to. Oh, I see something. Can you see that? I haven't soldered that wire. And it still worked. Oh my goodness. Okay, before I go any farther with this, I must get the soldering iron out. All right, zoom out again. All the coupling capacitors and bypass capacitors in the audio circuit have been replaced. The cathode bypass capacitors have been installed, and the output tube cathode bypass capacitors have been installed there. Now, what I found was a rather strange thing, considering that the power transformer and the rectifier tube is really overkill for a chassis like this. It really looks like it should have been installed in a huge black and white TV of the era, and yet it's in this. It's really not necessary. And the other strange thing is that it's got 3 filament windings. So they've got 1 filament winding. Let me zoom in again. 1 filament winding that is hooked up to one 6BQ5 and one 12AX7. The second one is hooked up to the other channels, 6BQ5 and 12AX7. And then yet a third one, which are these blue wires. No, sorry, the green ones come there from the transformer, and they feed all the tubes in the FM front end and the IF chain and the pilot lights. And And so there it is. The other strange thing I found was probably the cathode resistors in the 6BQ5s should be 1 watt, 2 watts. They had put in half-watt resistors, and I don't know why, they just did. So I didn't think that was satisfactory, so I took them out. And while I didn't have any 1 watt or 2 watt resistors, these white fellas here, they are 5 watt and they will work fine. So that's a little overkill. And the suspects, usual suspects, these are the capacitors, other than the big electrolytic, that have been removed and replaced. The grommets, that was an interesting challenge, that go to make this, I don't know whether you can see that, sub plate. No, it doesn't show really. For the FMAM, in other words, the tuner section, they're all suspended, sort of floating on 4 bolts that have grommets on them. And it was a nightmare to get them all out. The grommets were perished hard, terrible things. So I had some, and it was workable, except the one right down here, which I had to unbolt this switch assembly and pull it back and get the wiring out of the way so I could get the screwdriver in there to do that. But obviously it was accomplished. Okay, so essentially this is all done. I've had it up working. Oh, the other thing is the other filter bank. Oh, let me do this again. The other filter bank, which is this fella here, has just been removed from the circuit. That is a 3-section filter capacitor. I really wasn't willing to restuff that. Instead I put a tag strip and installed these capacitors there, wired the resistors that were across that along there. There was a nice little spot to be able to do that. And so, and that's that. So I don't think there's anything else really to mention. I'd hook it up and play it, but there's 2 problems with it. First of all, I am very much impressed with the quality of sound, considering it is 1 6BQ5 per channel in Class A, and it is, I think maximum you'd get is about 5 or 5.5 watts out of it. And it sounds, I wouldn't say spectacular, but it's definitely room filling. It's quite quality sound, especially when I feed in a signal from, say, my DVD or my CD player, pardon me. The other problem is that if I play anything, YouTube is going to give me a copyright strike. And of course, we all try to avoid that. And the other problem is, as good as it sounds here, what is going to be recorded is picked up on the microphone that is up there and digitally processed and put on the computer and then reimagined in software and then submitted to YouTube and published, and you might be listening to it on some computer speakers that are like 3-inch diameter and have 1 watt capability. So the quality of the sound is going to be lost. So I'm not even going to bother with that. You'd have to take my word for it that it sounds pretty doggone good. And I guess that's it. I'll turn it over again. One more thing to show, if I can. not get everybody confused here. Okay. The speaker connections, because this was a console, they are just little pins that were in there to be permanently wired to the internal speakers. No external speaker jacks for this particular model. So I drilled that out, removed that, and then I installed this, which is the push to connect, push to disconnect, standard speakers, and put a plate on the top to cover the opening that was there, and put the left and right demarcations there. Also on the other side, I marked the phono input and the tape input. Now the other ones I didn't bother marking because they're tape output and almost nobody uses tape recorders anymore. And there's multiplex input and various other things in there that are just not used these days. So I put marking on the ones that were appropriate, and it works fine. So that is just about the end of it. And even though the phone is ringing, I'm going to say thank